Hi, welcome to the SAG-AFTRA Foundation Conversations at Home. I'm Jenelle Riley. I'm an editor at Variety, and I'm so pleased to be here with you today. Before we start, I want to remind you all that the SAG-AFTRA Foundation has a COVID-19 relief fund to support SAG-AFTRA artists during this time. Information on how you can support this effort can be found in the description of this video. And now it is my pleasure to introduce the star of Wild Mountain Thyme. Please welcome Jamie Dornan. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Jenelle. Nice to be here.
I know I've asked you, I usually start by asking people how they got their SAG card, but I've asked you that before, and I actually remember it was Marie Antoinette.
Yeah.
So I actually want to know, when did you first know you wanted to be an actor? Like, were you someone who did school plays as a kid? Was it something, you always wanted to do?
Yeah, I don't think I was one of those kids that grew up like wanting to be an actor. I wasn't, it wasn't that. It only seemed like fun when I was a kid. I didn't know anyone who made a career out of being an actor. The odds for success and a good living out of being an actor are so small that nobody's really sort of pushing you down that avenue, particularly where I came from and in the schooling I went to. Nobody was saying, hey, I've got an idea. You want to be one of the 3% who makes a career out of this. I just wasn't conversations I was having. But yeah, I did like plays at school, and I did youth theatre outside of school, and I did some amateur dramatics, and my auntie was very busy with an amateur dramatic society in town that I grew up in. So, I've been around it, and but it's one thing to be around it and have fun with it, and another thing to think it's gonna pay your bills. But I think that came much later for me. Not even after Marie Antoinette, even after my first gig, and I think it was a while I was still juggling other things and doing other things that were taking up my time. And it wasn't until I started sort of working with consistency and that I was like, okay, I've got to drop everything else, and this is the thing now.
I've heard that from so many people. Like, I asked them when they felt they could consider themselves a real actor, and they're like, I'm still working on it. So
Yeah, I could have very easily had that answer too.
So I want to start at the beginning with Wild Mountain Thyme, because this film is adapted by one of my favorite playwrights, John Patrick Shanley, from his play, Outside Mullingar. Were you at all familiar with the play, and how did this script find its way to you?
Yeah, I was probably more familiar with John Patrick Shanley than I was particularly with Outside Mullingar as a play. I knew about that play. I remember hearing about it. I remember Brian O'Byrne and Deborah Messing on Broadway. I remember like reading something about them doing that play, and I knew who John Patrick Shanley was because of Doubt and because of Moonstruck and Joe versus the Volcano, which I think is one of the most underrated movies around. So yeah, it was that thing. If I had an awareness of him, so when his name popped up in an email and that there was for some crazy reason he really wanted me to do it. There was a bit of excitement already. My agent had sort of, if you're a fan of John Patrick Shanley, you're really a fan of John Patrick Shanley. You know what I mean? Like, he has a particular tone. He has a very unique, poetic way of writing dialogue, and his movies resonate with people in a different way, I think, to a lot of other filmmakers. So his name had piqued a bit of interest just around my team or whatever. And it didn't take me a lot. I read the script. I was like, this is one of the craziest things I've ever read. But it's also one of the most beautiful things I've ever read, and I was enchanted by it, I think is the right term. By these weird and wonderful, lonely Irish farmers, and the complications of their romance just hooked me, and I spoke to John. Those phone calls with directors, they usually last an hour and a half, and so we had this scheduled call with me and John Patrick Shanley, and I said to my wife, I was like, I'm going to speak to John Patrick Shanley tonight. She said, okay, fine. Well, what time do you finish? I said, well, it's starting at 7. I've probably done at 8, so maybe we'll eat a bit later or whatever. 7 minutes later, I was downstairs in the kitchen, and I just had the quickest. That's the way Shanley rolls, I guess. It was like, he was like, you want to do the movie? I'm like, yeah, I think I want to do the movie. Okay. I was like, okay, that's it. He's like, I want you to do it. You're my guy. And I was like, okay, well, and at the time, I sort of, I had another few things. This was a year before we made it, so I sort of said yes and attached myself, and then a million other things got in the way and happened, and there was another actress doing it at one point, and then that all changed, and Emily came in, and then it all really happened.
For anyone who hasn't seen John Patrick Shanley's acceptance speech at the Academy Awards for his Moonstruck screenplay, it's one of my favorite speeches ever. I will butcher it, but he basically says, "I want to thank anyone who ever kissed or punched me," and it's so indicative of his writing. That's what I feel these characters are doing. They're fighting and they're loving. What in particular interested you in the role of Anthony? And obviously, you're Irish, you're playing a character from Ireland. I believe you even live on a farm. People might assume this character is a lot like you, but that's not a fair assumption.
I think it's fair to assume that he's more like me than anyone I've played before,
I'm
probably.
happy to hear that.
Yeah, right. I've played a lot of characters who are very much in control and know what they want and know how to get it, and physically in control and confident. And Anthony is none of those things, and that's probably slightly more relatable to me. He's also nothing like me in so many ways too, but it's this opportunity, obviously to work with the likes of John Patrick Shanley and this insane cast that I got to play with. But I've never portrayed anyone like Anthony on screen before. I've never really had the opportunity to so far. And I loved the idea of being able to explore all his complexities and oddities and shortcomings, some of which I could recognize in myself, and heighten and elaborate and throw a bit of fuel on to embody him. And that was just very exciting to me, the prospect of that, So it was definitely like some of the most fun I've ever had, and maybe will ever have at work, because it is fun too, tonally it's fun. I've played characters I really care about and that are close to me too, like in Private War and stuff, and and Anthropoid and My Dinner of Herbie, all these characters that I love portraying that maybe didn't have the lightness that Anthony has, and that the tone of this movie has, so it was not only so fun to be able to say these words, but it was just a joy to shoot the film, and with in Ireland with an all Irish crew, so yeah, it was pretty amazing. The farm thing, I kind of live in a farm. I don't live in a farm, but I live, it's hard for people to understand, but I live in a house that has land, and on the land we have a horse, we've got 2 goats, we've got 5 chickens, a rabbit, and a dog. Right, so it's quite a lot of animals. It's more than most people have when they're not calling it a farm. But
Yeah.
essentially, it's not like a working farm. But where I'm surrounded by farms, I live in a very rural part of the world. So I definitely know what it's like to be in and around that kind of environment. So that was definitely helpful for Anthony as well.
Well, here in America, if you have chickens, it's a farm. So I think it counts. Actually, that's not true. I know a lot of people in apartments who have chickens, so I should take that back.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'm sure there's some eccentric people who have a balcony this size in New York,
Yeah.
and they've chicken out there that they let out again and bring,
Yeah, it's a big thing now to get your own eggs. So that was probably a bad example. But even though you share some similarities with him, you still have to prepare for every role. And I don't know if there was any special research you did or anything you did to prepare for Anthony.
Yeah, I mean, what was great about John Patrick Shanley is, as much as he doesn't want to talk to you for that long, he gives you these unbelievable little nuggets of information, and based on the real Anthony, who's sort of loosely based on, or just these little sort of like kernels of characteristics or things that you can use and put in if you want to. He's very much take it or leave it. I trust you to do what you want to do with it. So much of the work was done on the page for this one, and actually so much of it I felt that I could dig into my own self with him. there's a show here because he's someone who's so um, hard. He finds it so hard to express himself. He really struggles with confidence. He can't talk to this woman that he knows he needs to be with, who really wants to be with him, but he's incapable because he has this sort of secret that he's harboring that he thinks that she'll run away if he tells her, because that was the effect that it had on the one girl he did tell, Fiona, back in the day. So he's living with all these sort of insecurities and blockages in how he can feel he can be like a normal person. So there's a couple of shows that are on here that I watched a little bit of. There's a show called The Undateables, which is sort of a slightly unfair show, I think, sometimes in hindsight, where they have, people who, are physically or sometimes mentally not what's considered the norm. And they're basically people that struggle to get dates or to have successful dates. So I watched a couple of those to try to sort of see how people who don't have a lot of confidence and didn't think a lot of themselves, how they were when they were faced with like trying to talk to someone who they were, meant to be find some sort of common ground with. It was helpful to a point, but not particularly. He's very much his own unique person, Anthony. I think he probably is on some kind of spectrum. If I'd say in a modern day analysis of it, you'd probably say that. But I think loads of us are probably on some kind of spectrum if we allowed someone to tell us the truth. So all of my own insecurities and oddities and things that I find uncomfortable about myself and how I am with people, I was able to put into him and exasperate.
No, this will be airing after the movie has come out, so I just want to be a little bit spoilery here. And if you haven't seen it, we should go watch it and come back. But just in case, a quick warning. Anthony says at one point that he believes he is a honeybee. Did you take him to be completely serious? Is he talking metaphorically? Is he? It seems like he's saying completely literally he thinks he's a honeybee.
So I sort of held back from asking that question to Shanley until the day of, and we shot. It's a pretty epic sort of 25-page scene that we come back and forth with Emily and I in the kitchen, and the day that I had to utter those words to her and release Anthony's secret, I said to Shanley, I was like, I actually just haven't asked you this. Like, does he legitimately believe that he's a honeybee? And Shanley went, sure. Everyone thinks there's something. I was like, I just love you that you think. I don't know if everyone does think that they're something that they're not. Maybe a slight version of that, but maybe not as extreme as a flying insect. My way of, from an acting standpoint, would be to say it with total conviction that is, yes, entirely what he believes. And it's funny, Jenelle, like that day that we did that climax of that scene, I really had sort of convinced myself that I was Anthony Riley by this point, I think. And he felt like he was so much a part of me and I was within him, that I think I'd convinced myself. That rarely happens in this job. I think that you get those moments where you're always trying to tell the truth of the situation, and but sometimes there's things at play that distract you from the truth or sort of throw water on the truth a little bit. But now and again, you have these moments where you're entirely convinced yourself that what you're saying is utter truth and nothing, no light hanging from there or camera guy moving around here or anything can distract you from it. It is the truth. And that was one of those days for me. And when I uttered those words, I was like, I am telling this person that I love and I know loves me that I think I'm a honeybee. and it destroyed me. I was broken. I was broken after it. I really had to, like, I really had a moment after that revelation of telling her that. And Emily was just so lovely in how she dealt with it. And it obviously, you're broken out of it quickly. She says, "I'll get the car," and you're out of it. But I needed a minute after that. I really did.
Well, yeah, the way you played it is so convincing. I absolutely believed it. I was like, okay, he thinks he flies around and pollinates flowers.
Yeah. It's crazy. It's crazy, but only it can only come out of John Patrick Shanley's head.
Yeah. You mentioned the wonderful Emily Blunt, who's just such an amazing actor, and I'm just sort of curious what she's like as a scene partner. I'm not surprised you guys have amazing chemistry, but it's just you really feel like these are two people who have known each other since they were children.
Yeah, I mean, she just made it that easy. I sort of had met Emily a few times, sort of socially before we got to shoot. Always been a massive admirer of her work. Emily's a proper movie star, and here she is in the west of Ireland doing this tiny little movie with me and a lot of other Irish people, and it was a very cool experience that she came on, and so I couldn't quite believe it when she did, but she fell for this odd world that Shanley had created, and these sort of quite peculiar Irish farmers in Anthony and Rosemary. Like, she was bewitched as I was by them, and Emily's sister Felicity and my wife are best friends. So I've sort of been in and around the Blunt family for years, and so I've known her on the periphery, if you will. But we had a dinner before we started shooting, and we're just talking about how we were both like wrapped up in this world and that Shanley created, and couldn't wait to sort of dive into it. And I think after that dinner, we both knew we were just going to have a great time. We were very in tune about these characters and what we thought needed to be brought to them, and also, we just approached the game in a very similar way. We're very much about like having a laugh and breaking it up in between takes, and as most people are, let's be honest, like maybe one person out of doing this for 15 years hasn't been like that I've worked with, so we just had a laugh. And I feel particularly by that kitchen scene, we were just, even we didn't have the luxury of rehearsals. We hadn't rehearsed that scene. There's a lot of movement, there's a lot of her approaching him in a seductive way and him backing off, that was just felt very natural to us by that stage, because we felt so in tune with these characters, But she was the greatest dance partner, just made it so easy. Yeah, if you could do every movie of Emily, it'd be an easy way to do this.
You had a crazy task in this movie because you had to resist Emily Blunt, and I don't think that's easy.
Yeah, I know, it's true. What is he thinking? I mean, it's kind of crazy, but that's what it says on the paper. So that's what I have to do, But it's amazing that Anthony is so sort of crippled by this fear of releasing, of letting go, of opening himself up to this like amazing, beautiful woman who would do anything for him, and he sort of won't even allow himself to recognize that, let alone let it in. It's a fascinating, really fun energy to play that. And in that kitchen scene, everything is said, is not said, is held back from being said, is urged to be said. There's just so much happening in that that big scene, that it was a joy to play it.
I have to ask about working with Christopher Walken, who plays your father, because he is such an enigma to people, because he doesn't generally talk about his process. And you hear stories, and I think most of them are made up, about like, he takes all the punctuation out of his dialogue, or, I heard this one crazy story about how he lies in a stream and pretends to be an alligator before. I'm sure that was completely made up, but I'm curious, what is he like as a scene partner? Because whatever he's doing is working.
I didn't see him lying in any streams before.
I knew it.
it was so cold where we were shooting too. You know, it was like rainy and winter in Ireland. So there's no streamlining. I just don't know what you feel about his actual process, but he turns out to work super prepared. And, you know, what I love so much about Chris, but like he was scared. You know, he admitted that. He said he was scared, you know, and actually Dervla Malloy, who we have that big, you know, kitchen scene with the front, who plays Emily's mother. At one point, you know, we were sort of talking when we were doing rehearsals for that kitchen scene, which was the only scene that we got to rehearse, and we didn't have Emily yet. It was just Dervla and Chris and I. And Chris sort of said to Dervla that he was nervous, and Dervla was like, "You're Christopher fucking Walken." Well, it's true. It's like you're like a legend of the game. But it's so refreshing to hear that he's riddled with the same insecurities that we all are. And I think if you're not a wee bit terrified on day one of a movie, there's something wrong with you, or maybe you shouldn't be doing it, you know. So it's great to see that he had that still after so many iconic performances. And I think this is a side of Christopher Walken that we've maybe never seen, you know, and that's really exciting, you know, and he's so, but again, similar to me with Anthony, maybe it's maybe much closer to Chris than the sort of terrifying characters, some of the terrifying characters that he's put on celluloid before for us. You know, he's a real softy, Chris, you know. He has a real softness to him and sweetness to him that he gets to show in this. And, you know, I just, to the day I die, like Christopher Walken has played my dad and something. I just can't believe that, really, how fortunate I am, and to get to share the screen with him, particularly in saying the words of, you know, Pulitzer Prize winning, Academy Award winning, Tony Award winning John Patrick Shanley. So it's just a dream situation. And that scene where he's on his deathbed, you know, I've talked about this a bit, doing a bit of press. Like, I couldn't keep it together that day. That entire day, I cried all day. And just when I thought, you know, we ended on my coverage, Chris wanted to do his coverage first, so we got his out, and he was just heartbreaking every time he spoke. So I cried the way through that, blubbering away. And then, you know, they'd sort of go to footage, you know, they'd do like a shot of like the window and the star, and Chris would say his lines, I'd be crying. And, you know, like a close-up of the ashtray, I'm crying. And then, you know, finally it's like, we'll turn around Jamie's coverage, and I was just a wreck. And I was like, I don't know if I have anything left. Anyway, cried my whole way through that too. Because Chris was just, the way that he was dispensing those words with such sort of heart and elegance and beauty was just killing me. It was just killing me. I was just like, he was just destroying me every take. Yeah, I was beaten up that day by Chris, who was incredible.
And being Irish, did you find that the other actors were coming to you with questions or, you know, advice on their accents or anything like that?
I mean, I credit to them that everyone just got stuck in, and like, you know, we had the benefit of, you know, we're in the west of Ireland, we're in a remote part. All the Americans, you know, I think in general, Americans have a fascination with Ireland, particularly on the East Coast, and rightly so. So many Americans have Irish heritage, you know, so there's this sort of draw, this gravitational pull to to Ireland. So any American who was there was just delighted to be there, like just so happy to be in Ireland in like midwinter. You know, got stuck in socially. It feels like a different time when you could like go out for dinner and go for drinks, and with the people you're working with. It was such a, you know, I will never take that for granted again should we get back to those times soon. So yeah, you know, I felt like everyone had such an attitude of like, was so happy to be in Ireland, so happy to wanted to see Ireland, that it wasn't much of a hard sell for me. You know, I wasn't having to go like, guys, isn't this great? Like, everyone was just hook, line and sinker, bought into it, you know, so it was great to see.
Now, something you mentioned at the beginning was that John Patrick Shanley came to you and he didn't make you audition for this role. It was just an offer. That has to be an amazing feeling, coming from anyone, let alone someone as heralded as him. actors have a really complicated relationship with the audition process. I don't know when the last time was you had to do it. Do you mind it? Or are there things about it that you like?
I hate it. Straight up. I hate it. Was always terrible at it. Still, you know, I, I've got to admit, like, I'm very lucky. I don't have to do it a lot. I'm not saying I never do it, and I'm very willing to do it when required. And there's lots of actors who are directors who are totally insistent on it, and that's very cool. And it's a very strange thing when you haven't done it, and you turn up on day one, and you realize, if you haven't had a rehearsal period, that the director for the first time is seeing what it is you're bringing to the table, which is kind of terrifying. With Shanley, we got a little bit of rehearsal time, and he took me aside on day one and told me that I was the only person who could ever play this role, which I know doesn't sound like much, but like it means the world to you when you're questioning yourself. Like, as I said before, every actor sort of should be at all times. And he just felt that early on. I don't know why, Jenelle, but like he just did. He just like believed that I was the guy, and then you're like, I have to spend my time convincing him that, which you obviously do. But to get that sort of validation early on was really comforting, and my audition history is, it was just checkered mostly with failure back in the day, and but I not one of those failures is a waste, and I carry them all, and I think they're all necessary, and I look back in them all the time, and I did actors on actors variety thing with Eddie Redmayne. We recorded it the other night, and Eddie's done all right. Obviously, I'm doing okay, but we used to live together out in LA, and fail every audition, and we were talking about that a lot the other night, and how it's good for you. I'm glad you didn't come straight out of the blocks doing blockbuster movies and getting paid loads of money and thinking that it's that easy, because this game isn't that easy. And so I'm glad I've had a load of failures. I did an audition for someone last year. Was it last year?
Everything feels like last year.
What happened? What is it? I don't know when last year is. But for this very, very unique director, it was a very strange audition, and very slightly uncomfortable in many respects. But I'm definitely not going to name who it was. But he makes
I have a feeling.
very cool, very peculiar films. But is I'm very happy to do it when it's asked of me. Very happy to, but I'm thankful that it doesn't happen that much, because I'm terrified.
Well, and sometimes you're sort of auditioning the director, when you do have an audition.
Yes, and yeah, exactly, and that is often, it's a risk you're taking. You're jumping into this sort of union of, that could go drastically wrong if that doesn't. If you're like that, and sometimes you don't know you're going to be like that until you're on set, and money is being, but you feel like there's this like ticking clock, and you can hear the money just draining away, and as you battle it out with the director. Luckily, I haven't had too many situations like that, but I hear about that all the time.
So I want to go back to you and Eddie Redmayne. When you said you lived together in LA, did you mean you each lived in LA, or you actually lived together?
Oh no, we lived together. Yeah, we lived together.
Did? For how long?
For 4 months, I think.
Where is this movie? I want to see this.
That's the most depressing movie you'll ever watch. This is that movie. We live with another friend from this side of the world, who was out there, he was sort of a different thing, where he was sort of out there trying to get representation and slightly different tack, I guess. And Eddie and I were both with CA at the time. Eddie still is, and it was like, both nothing happening, knocking the door. It's someone from CAA with a big pile of scripts. Eddie and I look at each other going, who are they for? And per like, person guy who works in the mailroom at CAA going, oh, therefore, Jamie Dornan, like literally not even know who I am, and then Eddie going, "Oh right, that's a big pile of scripts just for you," and then Eddie waiting for his pile of scripts which wouldn't come. A lot of this, but all like done in jest and friendly, and but it's that thing of we're all going up for the same stuff. There's a load of other actors out there at that time: Rob Pattinson, Andrew Garfield, Tom Sturridge, all these actors who were all mates, who are all sort of going up and not getting the same jobs at that time. It's about 2008, 2009 maybe. And but yeah, no, Eddie's been one of my best friends for about 15 years.
Was he a sloppy roommate? Did he leave dishes around, or was he pretty meticulous?
He's no, no, but somewhere in between the two. But we're both sort of when you consider now we've got 5 kids between us and both happily married, and back then we were single and unemployed, and just doing what single unemployed 20-something-year-old actors do, which is to drink too much and just bounce about LA trying to get work.
I actually love hearing that, because I think there are some people who think there's only a limited amount of success to go around. And if one of their friends is doing well, it's somehow taking their success. And what I've actually learned is that success often clusters.
Yeah, right, true. And actually, I'm really thankful for that amongst my actor friendship group. The same sort of guys I've been friendly with, guys I mentioned there before, I've known for a very, very long time. I've never felt competitive with them at all. I don't think any of us have, in the nicest way. Even if we're going up for the same things, we'd always be like, in those LA days, we would be really prepping each other. I mean, Eddie was joking the other night about this movie BioShock, which they were trying to make back then, 12 years ago. They still haven't made. And we were all auditioning for this movie, BioShock. But we were all like helping each other, like, prepare for the auditions and stuff. It was all so stupid. It was like, what time are you in? 2:15. Okay, well, I'm in at 4. So should I work with you on yours? I mean, it was just for the same part, but never competitive, because I believe you. I agree with that, that it's tough. It's tough way to make a living for so many people, and I know that only too well. But there is work out there, and there is a lot of it, and more so now, less so now in the last 9 months. It's not. I don't mean that in COVID times, but with the huge emergence of streaming and television, and there's more work now. Hopefully in a post-COVID world there'll be more work than there ever has been.
I hope so. Oh, by the way, I should point out, I don't know if you've done this before. I'm racking my brain trying to think, but you sing in this movie. Is that something you were excited to do, or was it intimidating?
Intimidating. To a point, definitely. I can sing a bit. I can sing as much as the next actor can sing. Most actors can sing a wee bit. The daunting aspect was I'm singing live in front of a load of people and with Emily Blunt, who is a proper singer. At Emily's sister's wedding, I don't know, 10 years ago or something, Emily sang, like opera, like it's unbelievable, in this huge, church, and filled the room. And, I was like, whoa, I didn't realize she could sing that well, but she's like serious. And so that was daunting. And it was also our first day.
What?
So
you did that on the first day? That's cruel.
Not mad, that whole thing, and it's the last time, it's at the end of our relationship, when the relationship is all sort of worked out, and they're up there together, and it was it was our first day. It was mad. But yeah, I enjoy singing, and that's a beautiful song to sing. I love singing that song. I feel like I get to sing just enough in movies. There'll be the old thing where I get to sing a bit, but and I was actually meant to be doing a musical this year, and then scheduling all changed, and I had to pull out of it. But I would have been doing a bit more singing. But yeah.
And did I hear correctly that your wife did the music?
Yes, my wife did the score.
Oh,
yeah.
Good.
Yeah, isn't that cool? Yeah, it's beautiful, and it's a real cool thing that we got to work together, that we haven't yet, and we could have gone our whole careers without ever crossing paths, So it was very cool that we got to do this together. I think I'm so proud of her. I think her music's incredible. So she did the entire score, and she also co-wrote the song. In the credit song, we have Sinead O'Connor singing a song that my wife and John Patrick Shanley wrote together. So that's pretty cool too.
I love the music, and I just learned that this morning, and I was like, oh, she must have contributed music to one song or done a scene, and then I was like, no, she did the score of the movie.
Yeah, really cool. Really, really cool.
Really incredible. Before we go, I am sort of curious because you've had like such a varied career, even really in a short time. And you've obviously done some big budget movies, but it sort of feels like you're really kind of drawn to these smaller independents. I don't know if that's an active choice or you just sort of take what appeals to you. What do you sort of look for in a role?
I think a lot of it, I personally think the best scripts are in that region, are in that independent 5 to 15 million budget world. And I've been lucky enough to get a lot of those sent my way in the last, 6 years, let's say. And there's an energy that comes with that level of film where you don't have the luxury of, coming back for reshoots or shooting something the next day or multiple takes. If it's raining, it's fucking raining. You're doing the scene in the rain now. Just deal with it. Whereas if you're doing a studio picture, like, oh my God, it's raining. We've got this whole thing we're going to do if it's raining, and then we'll come back and shoot that. You don't have the luxury of all that. And I sincerely believe it brings out the best in people. I think that's when you get the best out of your entire crew. Because there's this sort of sense of urgency almost that we all in it together and we have to get it done today. And people bring their game to it, I believe. And a lot of the movies that I've loved watching my life and over the last decade or whatever have been movies in that range. And I've dipped my toe back into into studio pictures. I did a studio picture last year with Kristen Wiig that has been pushed. So it's not like I'm totally closed off to the idea of doing them, but I just, for whatever reason, I'm sent a lot in that range, and I feel that a lot of the best scripts that I read and most exciting directors with a real vision or something to say are in that realm too. So I'm definitely going to do plenty more of them if I'm given the opportunity.
Absolutely. And I want to remind everyone watching at home that the movie is actually available in theaters and on demand now, so you can go back and watch it over and over again. I want to congratulate you again on another great performance, and thank you so much for being here.
Thanks, Jenelle. I really appreciate it. Thank you.